Takeaways.
Whew. A lot of really smart people in rooms trying to figure out very complex issues. Someone told me a statement in life a long time ago: when you think the solution is simple, it shows how little you understand it. So, we're trying to solve a lot of problems in a short time frame, and there's just a lot of factors that go into it.
The coaches came out of the meeting today on the scheduling. I guess I heard different things. Like, was it your impression that this was kind of a spitballing thing where you're throwing out scenarios, or were there like specific scenarios that you wanted to hear from them and then take to the president?
Yeah, we always want to solicit great feedback, get the head coaches and ADs in the same room so we can be on the same page and listen and hear their thought process. They hear our thought process, have it come together. But I think ultimately what you're trying to see from both groups is you want to make this decision as part of a much bigger decision, right? How does this all fit into the future, whether that be playoff spots or how it affects revenue or how it affects, adding 8 losses to the tally. So you're trying to make those decisions in coordination with several other things that are all coming together at the same time.
The Big Ten scheduling agreement idea seemed to not go away, but like back burner New Orleans. Is it back now on the front burner because Brian Kelly was talking about it and Kevin was talking about it? Like, what's your impression of how?
I don't know on that one. I have to leave that one to Commissioner Sankey and their commissioner, see if there's any legs or any opportunity for there.
As Georgia's athletic director, what would you think of adding a Big Ten game to Georgia's schedule on an annual basis?
Yeah, I think we'd be open to it in the right scenario. Obviously, we're one of the schools that we've got, it's well documented. We have Georgia Tech every year, and then we have stepped out. If you look at our schedule, we've had Power 5 opponents on top of that. So there have been years we've already played 10 P5 opponents in some years. So while I say I'll be open to that, I have to then take a look at what we're going to have scheduled and see how it would affect it, because we do have Florida State and Louisville and other teams already lined up. So all of that fits in that puzzle. So would we open it? Yeah, but then we have to take a look at what it would look like for the rest of our schedule.
Meaning you probably have to get rid of some of those other games. You're not going to play, how many of that? 11?
Yeah, I'm not committing to 11 P5 games right now, but I think the credit to Coach Martin, we've always been open to playing a challenging schedule, especially those neutral site games we've opened the year with.
The sweet spot seems to be 10 power conference games, as that leaves people with room for 2 guarantee games. In most years, you get the 7 home games that you want.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak for any other AD or school, but we have rotated. If you look at traditionally, we've been 10-9, because there's been years like last, years we played Clemson or in Oregon, and years we didn't, or the home in Notre Dame. So I don't know what that average would be over the time. If you looked at it, would it be like 9.5 or 9.75, or if you really measured 10-9, 10-9. But you at minimum you get 9 every year. But if you stacked up how many of those other Clemson, Notre Dame, Oregon games we have, I guess we'd be just under 10 on average.
Last week, Josh, you talked about the importance of driving revenue. Have you guys explored at all on-field sponsorships in Sanford?
Yeah, so that stuff is now opened up as categories. So we're having a lot of conversations with those opportunities, whether it be, logos in the 25s or, on the banner on the sidelines, things on the basketball court, things at Foley Field. So we're open to all those, but you want to make sure when you do it for the right value, and you want to do it with a brand that meets your brand alignment as well. So those are ongoing, and hopefully we'll see some movement there in the future. But for the right price, any of you could, and our values align. I could, for the right price, we can get one of your organizations. The Dash, we could even sponsor the Dash on the.
We could.
Yeah. I think
How much do I have to pay? That'd be the only question. I can give you $10.
On one of the big ticket items, when we start talking about the different college football playoff formats, and I know that there's plenty of conjecture in that, but the difference between a 5-1-1 and a 4 automatic qualifier model, what is the, just to kind of explain that further, what would be the, I suppose, the positives or the negatives of either one of those models that the league's looking at?
Yeah, there's so many being discussed up out there right now, right? If you start with the AQ 4 or whatever, then you're guaranteed 4 spots. But then if you look historically, if we move to a 14 or a 16 team, and you look where how many we've got in, I look back to that and I say, I'm not sure how. I'm always going to want the decision that's going to get the most SEC teams in. No different than basketball or baseball or softball, right? I want to flood it with as many teams as possible from our conference, because that's only not good for our conference, it's good for Georgia, because if there's more opportunities for our conference, and I think if you look at our track record as a conference, we should have a good number between hopefully 5 and 6, and maybe one even more that are that fall in that criteria, the top 16. So I think you have to look at the historical data as a guiding star for how you make that decision moving forward.
There was some talk yesterday about the presentation on NIL Go. Any thoughts on what was sort of shared there?
Yeah, I think we have a great opportunity and a great system. We can sit here and tear it down and talk about the potential pitfalls, or we can talk about how we're going to work together to make this work. It's easy to tear something down and someone present a plan and tell you, oh, well, here's the weak spot, but we haven't done it yet. Let's work together, let's get through it, because we've asked for guardrails, now we have them. So instead of us saying, well, here's how I'm going to attack the guardrails, let's try to work together, work within these guardrails to make it better. And in that process, we may all have to lose a battle here and there on what we think is better for us to win the war ultimately on what's better for the game and what's better for college athletics, by following and staying in line, and then agreeing and as a conference, us all agreeing that we're going to abide by the terms of the settlement. Those are things that got to bind us together. It's not about us being so individuals that we're looking at what's best for our institution, because we can do that all day, but we've got to agree as a conference that we're going to work together to abide by the settlement and do what's better for the game and what's better for college athletics long term.
Do you feel like there was progress made as far as the entire conference following that
I think so, yeah. And I think there's always been alignment there from day one. Some things get taken out of hand, but I think there's always been alignment within our conference that we want to stick together. We want to abide by, the terms of the settlement if and hopefully when it gets approved.
What are the thoughts in the AD room about the transfer portal and when it's set up right now? Curry was pretty adamant yesterday about wanting just a one period in January. Kind of where does it kind of sit in the AD's room right now?
Yeah, I'll just speak from my behalf because I don't have a full straw poll. I mean, I would think and feel the majority would want one as well. I'm with Kirby, and Kirby and I are aligned on this vision of one portal window. We support the early January portal window, January 2nd to 12th. That was something that I went with Kirby to the AFCA meetings in Charlotte early in this year, and we met with head coaches. We debated it out. We got to a consensus, and everyone agreed. And I think that's the model. I think makes the most sense. And I'm sure there's going to be debate. And look, trying to get 130 schools to agree on anything is difficult. But I do think there was a great recommendation that came from that AFCA meeting earlier this year that said this is the best move for college athletics, understanding that there is no perfect solution. We can't let perfection be the enemy of progress, right? We know this is better for the game, and I think that's where, as my work on D1 Council, full oversight, practice places, I'm going to work to help push that. Now, some of these things are going to be handled by the implementation committee, but everything that I'm a part of, I'm certainly going to push for what I think is best for the game moving forward.
Josh, where are you now with how many of your teams are going to be participating in revenue sharing?
Honestly, it varies by amount, but the opportunities are there for all 21, and it could be smaller amounts, but we've really focused on being broad-based and having opportunities. And if you follow our athletes' social media, you'll see they've had these opportunities, and we're trying to create those organic things with our sponsors to have those opportunities where they can utilize that, but then also trying to teach them how to utilize their social media platforms and their presence to grow their brands and have those opportunities as well. So hopefully it's something that we can do, across the board in perpetuity for all teams.
Another big ticket item I wanted to ask you about was the concept of a playing game, and Commissioner, or playing games, plural, for the playoffs. And Commissioner Sankey said last night that the football coaches expressed an interest in protecting the SEC championship game. I guess I'd ask you your thoughts on that, and just that concept, which I suppose would go hand in hand with an automatic qualifier model.
Yeah, I mean, look, someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think we've been in 7 of the last 8 SEC championship games, and it's not grown tired or anything to me. I love the game. I think it's special. Go in that locker room after we beat Texas last year and tell me that game's not really special. And we celebrate that SEC championship still to this day of capping off our season. Of course, the season didn't end the way we wanted to, but in here you can win an SEC championship. That's a pretty special year. So that's always been a special week, special weekend, special game. Obviously, the nation agrees. It was the viewership it had. Two great brands, and you're going to see the top two teams from the SEC battle out every year. I still think the game is special, and I love being a part of that game.
You were on the field storming committee a couple years ago that came up with the ratchet up rules, and I lost track of how many fines had to be issued last year.
I kept track of ours.
0 for Georgia.
That's right.
Yeah, because you and Kirby did the thing, but was it after the Florida game to prevent?
You know, he takes a lot of credit for that, but when
Wasn't
it
he
came
leaving?
time to when it came down to the clock at 0, notice where he was standing and where I was standing. I just want that.
So did the students come on the court after Florida had left?
Yes. So
And so there's zero
so
fine for that.
there was a modification
Yeah.
midstream last year where we said, look, we understand the intent. We know the students want to come on the court. If we can work together to give a cooling off period, I believe it was 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Start the clock, let the teams clear, make sure the teams are cleared, then the students can come on the court. So thankfully, we had already been through it a couple times. Our students were telling them they couldn't rush the court, and we sent the athletes in the stands. That we had a great work relationship. So when I went into the stands, I said, guys, you're going to get to go on the court. Just hang with me. When the clock is 0, put 90-second countdown clock on, ran it down, and they participated. And I cannot give enough credit to our students for all that. And I give credit to the league for a great modification to the rule, and we followed it, got the visiting team off the court, and then our students were able to come on the court and have a good time. So
I was talking to Pittman about that because they had, and I think their win over Tennessee. I forget whether that was last second or they were up. That might have been a last second one.
Yeah, and that
when it's
look,
a spur of the moment
there's going to
kind
be
of thing.
that's right. Imagine that game it couldn't have played out better for me in terms of how many timeouts and fouls I was able to work around.
Yeah.
But if that had been because you don't want to jinx it if it's a tight game. I didn't go down there until I knew, all right, we're at a good enough lead and I can work through it. But if imagine if it's back and forth, and then somebody hits a game winning 3, that's going to be more difficult. So I'm not going to pretend that we've got it all figured out. But hopefully, we're going to keep working it with our students where they just know that becomes the new standard, to where they just know, hey, go to the clock and then we'll get to go on the court. Because ultimately, they just want to go on the court and celebrate, have that viral moment, take the picture or whatever. So hopefully it's become part of the process now for our students, and hopefully that can start happening more and more other places, to where even when that last second 3 does happen, everyone's so used to it that they'll wait and then let the other team clear.
Josh,
Time for 2 more questions.
if I can ask you non-football as it relates to 2 of your other programs, women's basketball and softball, the support you guys gave.
No track questions from you, Mark? I mean, come on, man.
That'll be the next press conference. The support you guys gave women's basketball to, acquire talent in the portal this year. Can you speak to that, maybe as it relates to how it was in the past? And then with softball, the run they made in the super regional, after the tough season they had, kind of what that looks for going forward in his 5th year coming up, I guess, Tony?
Yeah, so as we projected through with the new projected revenue share model, we had more opportunities to, as it's being funded from the school, to create opportunities to pay our women's basketball roster, which was hard to create NIL before, so that opportunity came there, so we were able to go recruit a great portal class. So I think now Abe and her staff are in a great position with the talent level from what we had returning. We had 2 freshman all-conference players returning, a great high school signing class, and then a great portal class. I feel really good about their program. In regards to softball, this is a very young team. We graduated a ton of seniors last year. Really excited with the progress they made. And with all due respect to Duke and every other conference, we went through a gauntlet in the SEC. And I knew that once we got to regionals, because I love the setup, right? We don't have to play another SEC team in regionals. I felt good about our opportunity. And Duke's a great team, but I said, hey, we don't have to play an SEC team. I feel good about it. And we made it through. And then we took Florida to 3 games. Florida's a phenomenal program. So I feel really good about where they're at as a young team and what we're doing in the portal, what we're doing in high school, and how I think we're going to keep evolving. We've given them support now, brand new facility. We got to showcase it at the SEC softball tournament. I think facilities still do matter. I know NIL's become a big thing, but for sports like softball, for not just recruiting, but how a kid will be able to train and develop and where they'll call home, I think matters. So I think it's going to help keep elevating that program.
what are some other facility, I don't know if you want to call it issues or not, but facility deals you would like to address here in the next couple of years to improve?
Yeah, I honestly, I'm glad we got so much done the last 4 or 5 years, because it's gonna slow down as we evolve and money starts shifting more to NIL. You will see the facilities slow down, and naturally, just because we got a lot knocked off the list, right? We've got the track finishing in December, January, and then we'll shift over to the old track becoming practice fields, parking, and all that. And in the future, there's always gonna be little things here and there. One of the focuses for me is always the student athlete experience, right? So I want to go locker room, make sure that we've got a couple more areas we need to get touched up. And then I've got to develop my team. We have to develop a plan for Sanford Stadium, not just for my tenure, but I'm trying to think about the person coming after me. So we want to start putting a comprehensive plan for Sanford together, 5, 10, 15, 20-year plan, to where whatever we do builds upon each other. That's where when I'm gone, the next person comes and goes, okay, here's the blueprint and how it's going to keep evolving, and giving them opportunity to still modify it. But you want to make sure whatever decisions you're making are all building to something where you're not painting yourself in a corner as we look at the evolution of Sanford Stadium. Because we always know we could always use more premium spaces, so I think that'll be something we keep looking at Sanford. But as we do that, we want to look at the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Thank you, Josh.